Good evening, I'm Anthony Robart. This is Crime Beat, the stories behind some of Canada's most high-profile homicides, told by the reporters who walk the beat every day, and the families demanding answers. Tonight, it was a mass killing that shocked the nation.
This one, I'll never forget. I mean, these kids were good kids.
The worst sound ever. He was on the other end of the phone and all I heard him say was, "No."
I truly believe I died that day.
And now, crime reporter Nancy Hixt brings us the story of the Brentwood 5 massacre.
In a city where it feels like it's winter most of the year, people celebrate even the slightest warm spell. It's not unusual to see people out on patios wearing shorts in Calgary in April. Shorts are also part of a year-end tradition at the University of Calgary called Bermuda Shorts Day. It's a year-end party, and there's always a big event at the university, and the celebrations often spill off campus. On April 14th, 2014, a group of friends planned one of those parties at their home near the university campus in the northwest Calgary neighbourhood of Brentwood. The small gray and blue split-level house was a well-known rental for university students that many affectionately called the Butler Mansion because it was located on a quiet block on Butler Crescent. This wasn't a big party, and many of those invited went to junior high or high school together. The rest knew each other from university. For the most part, the mood was laid back and relaxed. No one could have predicted how dark things would get and how quickly it all unraveled.
All of the Calgary Police Service has been deeply impacted by today's tragedy, but so many people have questions, and so the chief was quick to try to come out and shed some light on what happened.
This is the worst murder, mass murder in Calgary's history. We have never seen 5 people killed by an individual at one scene. So the scene was horrific. The suspect arrived at the party, obtained a large knife, and targeted the victims one by one, stabbing them several times. When our officers arrived, 3 young men were discovered deceased in the home. An injured female was also found inside the home and taken to the hospital in critical condition, suffering from stab wounds. Another male, also suffering from stab wounds, was discovered on the front lawn and transported to the hospital in critical conditions. They both succumbed to their injuries.
The 5 young people killed in this massacre were Lawrence Hong, Katie Paris, Jordan Segura, Zachariah Rathwell, and Josh Hunter. They are now lovingly remembered as the Brentwood 5. Lawrence Hong was the oldest among this group and the firstborn son of Lorenzo and Marlene Hong.
He's a very social person. He would greet everybody. Strangers, he doesn't choose.
Lawrence was 7 when his parents and younger brother Miles moved to Canada from the Philippines. He had a special shyness about him and preferred to be behind the camera than in front of it.
Hi Lawrence, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Are you good? Do you like having your picture taken? Looks
Are
like
you sure it's a picture, not a video?
No, it's only one picture. Don't! You're gonna mess up the shot.
He was studying urban design and infrastructure and dreamed of creating a more innovative future. He also worked part-time with his mother as a sales assistant for a local home builder.
That was, I guess, the most enjoyable time that I had with him as a grown-up man. And I was able to see him that he had applied what he had studied.
Lawrence's younger brother went to high school with Katie Paris. She was born on February 5th, 1991, to Greg Paris and Shannon Miller. She had an older sister and a younger brother. Later, her father remarried, and soon after, Greg and Cam Laraway had a little girl.
Our daughter, her little sister, just idolized her. And when she'd come over, like, she literally would pet her hair.
From a very young age, Katie's mom remembers she was strong-willed, feisty.
Mostly she was stubborn, which that was a love-hate thing I had for her, because I really admired actually her tenacity in standing up for what she believed in, even as like little.
Katie found her true calling when she was introduced to dance.
It was always great to watch her dance because she was so passionate, and her face lit up when she danced. You could tell that was her passion.
How exciting was it for you as a mom seeing her just like find that thing?
Was everything. Yeah. She struggled a lot. Sorry. Yeah, she struggled a lot to figure out what she wanted to do. When she decided on that, she just lit up, like from inside. So her eyes were glowing again, and she had this confidence that I hadn't seen for a really long time.
Katie knew Jordan Segura from high school. They shared a circle of friends. He was raised by Patty Segura, a single mother. He also had a brother who was only 17 months older than him.
I can tell you they were each other's first friends. You know, Jordan followed Julian around. Even before he could move and crawl, he was watching every move Julian made.
Patty and her boys were like the three musketeers, all for one and one for all.
We did pretty much everything together. The kids started skiing and snowboarding when they were quite young. I think they were probably about 7, 8 years old. The kids would snowboard and I would ski, and they were much better than me.
In university, Jordan was taking history and religious studies and ended up interviewing a funeral director for a research paper. He made such a good impression, the funeral home offered him a job.
He just fit in so well. He was like the host. He was a limo driver for the families. He spent time with families, just waiting for them if their family member was buried at a cemetery. You know, the funeral would be over, everybody would leave, and if the family, the mom and dad wanted to stay, he would just wait. He was patient.
Jordan wanted to be a humanitarian.
He was going to be a consultant for businesses and the government that have officials that travel to other countries around the world. And he was going to explain to them about the other cultures in these countries that they were going to, so that they wouldn't offend the people.
Josh Hunter was one of Jordan's friends from high school. He loved spending time with his parents and his little sister, and was well known for his giant hugs.
Tender soul, great kid.
It became clear very early on, Josh was born to be a musician.
We got him into music very early. I think he was 10 when he started playing drums. He was very passionate about that, connected with music in a big way, and that was a big part of his journey. And
even from the get-go, he was the kind of kid that you weren't going, oh, God, I wish he, but he could do it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, you weren't just hearing a bunch
and we
of
had a room.
Smash and bash, and he was actually, he had rhythm.
We had a room where, the music room where it was set up, and so he worked at it and was involved in music at school and started a band, and it was just a big part of his life. So
he was in grade 11 when they started Zachariah and the Prophets, and Zach and Barry were in grade 10.
Zachariah Rathwell was one of Josh's closest friends and part of the band. They all felt he had the coolest name, so they became Zachariah and the Prophets. His name was carefully chosen by his parents, Bruce and Rhonda Lee Rathwell.
Zachariah, hi. I liked Zachariah, and I liked the sound of it and the flow of it, and I liked the shortened version, Zach. So, but I didn't like Zach. So that's why he's Z-A-C-K-A-R-I-A-H. And we used to joke that he was going to be 20 before he knew how to spell his name. I have a footstool that has his name carved into it in blocks. It's like a puzzle. And he used to, that was, you know, he'd stand on it to brush his teeth and things like that. That was how he learned to spell his name, because he saw it twice a day. It was always there.
From a very early age, it became clear Zach was gifted with a wildly creative mind and a passion for music.
He was in, I'm going to say grade 7, and he wanted a guitar, and he wanted guitar lessons. And I mean, anybody that has kids knows that they go through these sort of phases, and do you really want to do that? Is that something you really want to do? Like, am I going to go out and spend $200 on something and it's going to get thrown in a closet? And he was, nope, I want to play guitar. And by that time, Bruce and I were divorced, and so there wasn't a lot of extra money. And I had a girlfriend whose daughter had done exactly that. Oh, I want to play guitar. And they had bought her a guitar and an amp, and it was now sitting in the back of the closet. And so she sold it to me for really cheap, and that was Zach's first guitar, and he never stopped playing.
Zach spent hours and hours practicing in the basement. The sound of him strumming would waft upstairs and bring a special calm to his mother. His progress was remarkable, his talent undeniable. He also had a very original voice, so he took on the role of lead vocals. Zachariah and the Prophets wasn't just a group messing around. The four friends were talented musicians who were making waves in Calgary. On April 12, 2014, just 2 days before the Bermuda Shorts Day party, the band celebrated a major milestone, the release of their first EP.
We were at the Palomino, sold out,
My
packed
mom was
room.
there.
Kelly's 80.
She was
81 up on the chair grooving. The band was in, great form, doing a great show.
The group of friends was looking forward to catching up at the Bermuda Shorts Day party. But the night would take a horrific turn.
Coming up on Crime Beat. Police were now investigating the worst mass killing in Calgary's history. The parents of the Brentwood Five had no idea their world was about to be shattered. The date, April 15th, 2014, would become one of horror and tragedy. We now return to Nancy Hixt with the Brentwood Five Massacre.
Police were called to the home at about 1:20 Tuesday morning. When officers arrived, 4 men and 1 woman had been stabbed. 2 of those victims were taken to hospital but died soon after. Witnesses helped officers find 22-year-old Matthew DeGrood a short distance away.
There was a struggle, and he had to be subdued.
Calgary Police homicide detective Matt DeMarino became the primary investigator assigned to the case.
I will never forget that moment till the day I die. I was in bed and asleep. Took the call at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and my boss told me, we have 3 people dead, we have 2 more who are about to die, and we have the offender in custody. We deal with homicides of all nature, and this one I'll never forget. I mean, these kids were good kids, and they were young, and they were in university, and they had their whole lives ahead of them.
The last time we saw Jordan was at home Julian was working in the garage and I was in the kitchen, and Jordan wanted to borrow the gardening equipment so he could clean up the yard at Butler. And so he loaded up the little trailer and he was leaving. Like, I was in the kitchen, he walked past behind me and said, "Bye, Mom." And I said, "Make sure you lock up that garden equipment because somebody's going to steal it." And he walked through the garage, said goodbye to Julian and left. And that was Sunday evening. And then on Monday evening, I sent him a quick text, and about 8. And I knew there was going to be a party at Butler. And I attached a picture of our dog to the text. And I said, "Are you partying, Jordan?" And he replied, "Yes, Max." So that was the last text. And that was the last time we saw Jordan.
Katie didn't make it to the EP release, but she planned to catch up with her friends at Jordan's party the following Monday.
She didn't go out very much. She was definitely a homebody. And that was one of the reasons why she called, because she was telling me that she was going to go to this party. And I mean, it was with all her friends that she grew up with and went to school with. So it wasn't some crazy university party that, you know, anybody and everybody was showing up to. It was just a really great group of kids.
Lawrence Hong had been burning the midnight oil trying to finish his last term paper.
We're just inside the house. He'll send me a text, "Dad, could you make me coffee?" So I go down and make him coffee. Right. For 2 nights, I definitely will never forget that one. The machine was running overtime. Right, the espresso machine was brewing everything. I never saw our machine works continuously. So he wasn't sleeping for basically 48 hours to finish his term paper.
By Monday morning, he was finally done, but he was exhausted, and he didn't think it was safe to drive being so sleep deprived. His mom and dad drove him to class. When they finally arrived, Lawrence had to run to get to class on time.
When Marlene moved from the back to the front seat, I said, my dad has passed away then. I said to Marlene, "Papa would be very proud of Lawrence." Didn't know the significance, because he would be very proud of what he had become.
That day, the Bermuda Shorts Day parties were underway at the university. Josh shared a video of the festivities on his social media with the caption, "Crazy Town BSD."
He parked there in the morning and rode his bike to school, went to Bermuda Shorts Day.
Zach was taking classes at the Alberta University of the Arts. After school, he went home and told his mom he planned to meet up with Josh and the rest of their friends in Brentwood.
I specifically remember standing by the stove with him and him telling me what he was doing that night, and that he only had a couple more classes left before he was done, and that he was planning on drinking, and he was going to ride his bike. He wasn't going to drive, but he was going to stay over there, and then he would just ride his bike to ACAD in the morning because it was close. And I just told him I loved him, and he said he loved me, and I gave him a kiss. I had to stand on my tippy toes, give him a kiss, and he helped me carry the stuff out to the car, and I drove off, and that was the last time I saw him.
The party was pretty chill, just a relaxed get-together, nothing crazy or out of hand. A few people hung around the fire pit in the backyard, others inside the house. There was one guy who stood out. He was 22 years old and was invited by Brendan, one of the roommates of the Brentwood house. They were childhood friends. He arrived late to the party, and his conversation seemed ominous, going on and on about conspiracy theories. He started talking about the blood moon, the apocalypse, and vampires.
Most of the people at the party didn't think much of the young man's ramblings, but his behavior got more and more strange. That's coming up on Crime Beat. As details of this tragedy were revealed, the parents of the victims still needed to be notified their loved ones were gone. We now return to Nancy Hixt with the Brentwood 5 massacre.
Lorenzo and Marlene Hong didn't hear from their son after the party, and that was out of character.
Lorenzo keep on saying, like, it's weird, he's not texting.
He's not answering the phone?
Yes, Lorenzo called and he's not answering. So Lorenzo said, it's weird. But then the thing is, we don't know where he is.
Lorenzo couldn't sleep. He kept watching his phone, waiting for word from Lawrence. Instead, the next morning, there was a knock on the door. It was police.
He showed us a picture.
Yes,
of
if that's Lawrence's
clothes.
And I said yes. And I said, then, where's Lawrence? And then they said, oh, he's into...
there was an incident.
There's an incident. So I said, is he in trouble? Did he did something wrong? And he says, no, it's the other way around.
Lorenzo knew what the officers were trying to say. He hugged his wife.
And Lorenzo said, he's already dead, Mom. He's not. I said, why? What happened? Like, my Lawrence is a good boy.
Across town at Greg Paris's home, April 15th started like any other day. His wife, Cam Laraway, woke up and turned on her TV.
All it said was 5 people were killed at a house party, and I remember thinking, oh, that's terrible. What a horrible thing. And then this car pulled up, and I knew when they got out that they were not parents from the school, that it was 2 plainclothes policemen. And he looks at me and he goes, Shannon? And I went, no. And then he looked kind of confused. They looked at each other. And I went, well, that's my husband's ex-wife's name. Who are you looking for? So I don't know exactly what they said. You know, they said his name. I remember the one officer saying, the old typical, we regret to inform you. And that's all I heard. And then Caitlin Paris, and then homicide. And I'm like, what? No.
Cam said she had to take a few minutes to try and calm down. And then she called Greg to tell him police were at the house.
I just started feeling dread right away. And of course I opened the door and there's these 2 guys. I think they had suits on, I don't know.
They were clean.
And they started doing the same thing. And all I heard was homicide and party. And I didn't know she was at a party. Yeah. And then they finally said her name and I just took a couple steps and fell on the floor. I didn't pass out, I just couldn't walk, I couldn't stand up. And I couldn't figure this out because she didn't go to parties.
No.
And it was a Monday.
It was really hard, yeah.
It was a Monday, I'm going, this is no. And then they said there's 4 more. And then I'm like, what? Like what, like now you're like, how do 5 people get killed?
I was driving to work that morning on April 15th, and I heard it on the radio. They didn't say names, but as soon as I heard it on the radio, I knew it was Katie. I have no idea how I knew. So I managed to get to work, and then I told myself, you know, I was being crazy, that I would just wait till 8:30 because Katie would be mad if I woke her up. So I got to my desk and I just sat there. I didn't work, I didn't do anything. And 8:30 never came, because at 8:21 is when Greg called me. And as soon as I saw that it was him, I just knew that what I thought or felt was true. And he wouldn't tell me on the phone, but I knew. Honestly, I can't think of anything that's the same. I truly believe I died that day.
Patty Segura wasn't concerned about her son Jordan throwing a party. It was a small get-together with a great group of kids.
The next morning, these two plainclothes police officers got out of this plain car that was parked in front of my house. And they asked me my name. Or no, they asked me, they said my legal name. I have a other name that it's not Patty. I have a full name, full legal name. They asked me that, and right away the panic went up. And I started to shake, and they told me to sit down, and I yelled out for Julian to come because he was getting ready for work. So we sat down in the kitchen, and the police officer looked right at me and he said, "Jordan passed away last night." So I don't remember much after that. I remember looking to my right to Julian and saying, "Call Daddy." And then Julian called a couple of other people after he called his dad. So
Patty turned on the news to learn more about what happened to her son.
Nobody would tell me anything. Anybody that came to the house, nobody would tell me what happened to Jordan. I knew he passed away, but I didn't know how.
So how did you find that out?
I went upstairs and went on my phone, and I heard the chief of police explaining it in probably a press conference or something, I don't know. That's the only way I knew how Jordan died.
Josh Hunter's father went out of town on business right after the EP release for Zachariah and the Prophets.
I went out of town the next day on a business trip to Vancouver, and then I was up really early for some reason looking at the news, and I saw this news flash about this thing that had happened, and I had no idea. And I'm going, oh, that's horrific. I can't even imagine.
Well, I was up because my mom and my brother were in town for the CD release, and they were leaving that morning, and they were planning on being out of the house at 7. So I was up, and the phone rang. It was just before 7. They were like almost ready to leave, and the police called and said, "We need to come and talk to you." And I tried to get them to tell me what, just tell me what's wrong. Is he okay? Tell me if he's okay. Tell me, is he in jail? I'll go get him. Just tell me something, give me an idea. And they wouldn't tell me anything. They just said, "You'll have to." I said, "It's gonna take you an hour to get here. You have to tell me something."
And then the phone rings literally within seconds, and it's Kelly, and she's saying, "I can't get a hold of Josh." And I tried phoning him, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And then Kelly said that the police are on their way out and they won't tell me what's going on. And my heart just dropped. And I'm in a hotel room in Vancouver, supposed to be going for business meetings. And
it's the worst sound ever. He was on the other end of the phone, and all I heard him say was, "No."
I don't even know how I got home. I got to the airport, WestJet. I didn't know what else to say other than, I need to get a flight. My son's been murdered. And they just kind of were shocked and looked at me. And then within minutes, I was being whisked through security, and they had a flight. They put me on the front of the plane, just with nobody around me, and just got me home.
Rhonda Lee Rathwell was at work when she got a call from one of Zach's bandmates.
Barry called me, and he said, "Have you talked to Zach?" And I said, "No." "Why?" And he said, "Because we can't get a hold of him." And I was like, "Barry, you need to tell me exactly what you're trying to tell me. Like, tell me what's happening." And he said, "We were at that party last night, and Josh is one of the people who was killed." And then from there, it's all just kind of a blur. I kept trying to call Zach's phone. In fact, I phoned the police. I phoned them and said, "This is my name, and I was just told that my son was at that party." And then they called me back.
It was hours before Rhonda Lee got that call. Police worked as fast as they could, but they had to be certain of each identity before they could notify each of the 5 victims' families.
They had his driver's license. That's what they showed me when they finally got there. They showed me a picture of his driver's license and said, "Is this your son?" And I said, "Yeah."
Police were quick to track down the killer and find out he's related to one of their own officers. That's coming up on Crime Beat. Police quickly learned the identity of the killer. But what led to this senseless tragedy? We now return to Nancy Hixt with the Brentwood 5 massacre.
The suspect, 22-year-old Matthew DeGrood, is still under watch at the Rocky View Hospital at this hour. He is now charged in the worst mass murder in the city's history. He is officially charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder.
DeGrood is the son of a 33-year veteran police officer and identified as the only suspect in the case.
2 days after the mass killing, Inspector Doug DeGrood, with his wife by his side, addressed the media about his son.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. I am Douglas DeGrood, and I am an inspector with the Calgary Police Service. But I'm here today not as a police officer, but as a parent and a husband. I speak for my wife, Susan DeGrood, as we are one voice. We are shocked and devastated. And we are trying to make sense of what happened. We are deeply saddened for what the families and friends of the victims are going through. Your lives have been turned upside down. We know words cannot begin to ease your pain and suffering. Please accept our deepest condolences and know you are in our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers. Our condolences also go out to the first responders who attended the scene. You had to detach from your emotions to do your job. Your professionalism was exceptional.
Doug DeGrood spoke about his family's struggle to comprehend what had happened, what his son had done. Matthew was a smart young man. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science with distinction. He majored in psychology with a minor in law and society and was just months away from starting law school.
Like any parent can tell you, a love for your child is unconditional. And we love Matthew dearly. We hope someday we will have answers as to why this happened. Regardless, it won't bring the victims back. But we would give anything to do just that.
There was little time for the families of the Brentwood 5 to grieve. The court process was already underway.
We have more now on this story from Brentwood. Our Nancy Hixt is live at the scene. And Nancy, you have some developments.
I've just confirmed that 22-year-old Matthew DeGrood, who is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, briefly made an appearance in front of a justice of the peace. He did this via the phone from the Rocky View Hospital. I have been told that he has since been released into the care of the sheriffs. It is my understanding that he will now be taken for a psych evaluation, and that should happen before his next court appearance, which is supposed to happen next week.
Then, just days after the Brentwood 5 were killed, DeGrood was sent for a psychiatric assessment.
After a 30-day mental health evaluation, a forensic psychiatrist has determined Matthew DeGrood is fit to stand trial. That means doctors have found the 22-year-old is able to understand the court process and direct his defense counsel. However, court heard DeGrood still has mental health issues and will require further psychiatric care. He's been sent back to the Southern Alberta Forensic Psychiatry Centre for an indeterminate amount of time.
You have to keep in mind that being fit to stand trial only means that he understands the process and he can instruct counsel. You can still be very profoundly mentally ill and be fit to stand trial.
Details of the police investigation and psychiatric assessments were protected by a publication ban until the trial got underway in May of 2016. The issue was not if DeGrood killed the 5 young people, but rather his mental state at the time.
It was a heart-wrenching start to the trial as horrific details were entered in court about what happened that fateful night. And a warning, the details are very disturbing. Global's Nancy Hixt has just returned from court. Nancy.
Gord, court heard Matthew DeGrood had been acting strangely in the days and weeks leading up to April 15th, 2014. DeGrood had been making strange posts on social media. He'd been texting things about the Illuminati, Satan, and Hitler to his parents. On April 14th, 2014, DeGrood updated his Facebook status to read, "Dread and the Fugitive Mind, the world needs a hero." Names of songs by a heavy metal band. An examination of his internet searches revealed he was Googling the World Wars, Hitler, and the Antichrist. In the afternoon of April 14th, DeGrood went to work at a local grocery store. That evening, he sent a series of seemingly random and bizarre messages to his parents, including Book of Revelations and Illuminati. DeGrood left work early and took transit to the community of Brentwood. He walked to a gas station where he met up with a childhood friend named Brendan. Brendan walked with DeGrood to a house party he and his roommates were hosting at the Butler Mansion. At one point, DeGrood handed Brendan a clove of garlic and told him he was going to need it for later. He also gave him a long knife. DeGrood talked about vampires and told people to kill a vampire, you have to stab it in the heart. He also said that at midnight, it would be the end of days. He put on a pair of blue medical latex gloves and said they were to hide his fingerprints in case he had to kill somebody at the end of the world. In the meantime, his parents were growing more concerned. They were texting and trying to find out where he was. He sent his mom a series of messages that included, "I'm okay, Mom, I promise. I will never die, and no one will die. You can't come here, you will die." His mom contacted police, and his dad went out looking for him. They had no idea he was at a party.
How did one person manage to kill 5 people in less than a minute? The shocking details of this case coming up after the break. Would the trial for Matthew DeGrood bring the justice the families of the Brentwood Five were seeking? We now return to Nancy Hixt with the Brentwood 5 massacre.
At 1:15 a.m., Doug DeGrood approached a patrol car to tell officers he was looking for his son. It was only minutes later, those same officers learned of a massive crime in progress. Back at the house, a group of friends had gone to a nearby McDonald's to pick up food. Zach was in the kitchen talking to DeGrood when it all unfolded, quickly and unexpectedly.
I don't think it was minutes at all. I think it would be in seconds. And I think that the offender was having a conversation with one of the victims. Something that happened during the course of that conversation triggered the offender to believe that, you know, this was the start of it, this was it, this was the end of the world, this was, you know, whatever it was that was happening in his head. And it was very, very quick sequence and order in which those 5 kids were killed.
DeGrood took a large chef's knife and stabbed Zach 7 times. There was no warning, no fight, no altercation. He then went into the living room and stabbed Josh 6 times. And then he stabbed Jordan once. Katie tried to escape, but couldn't. She was stabbed 4 times. Lawrence was asleep in the living room when he was stabbed 4 times. In the meantime, despite suffering life-threatening injuries, Josh got up and ran out the front door of the house. He later collapsed on the lawn. Matthew followed him.
The kids who, you know, had just come back with the fast food walked into the house and were just shocked with what they saw. There were just massive amounts of blood. you know, and then on the front lawn there were kind of evidence of the paramedics trying to save, you know, the victims and stuff like that.
Zach, Jordan, and Lawrence were already gone. Josh was rushed to hospital but passed away about a half hour later. Katie was also taken to hospital but also passed away shortly after. DeGrood was arrested with the help of the K-9 unit. An injured and handcuffed DeGrood was wheeled into an ambulance on a stretcher. Inside his pocket, police found a latex glove. He had a clove of garlic in his sock. He told the officer it was to keep the vampires away, and he wanted to speak with a lawyer. He was put into an ambulance and told EMS, "I was just trying to kill them before they killed me."
So when he was arrested, the officers on scene, the uniformed officers, noted very quickly that he was speaking and not making a lot of sense, talking about, you know, things that just wouldn't seem normal. So they brought him to the hospital to address, you know, those needs. And I sent a homicide detective to the hospital to ensure that he was, you know, properly arrested and his, you know, charter rights in Canada have been properly exercised. And during the course of that interview as well, that officer noted that, you know, he was talking nonsensical things about, you know, Darth Vader and, you know, various things like that.
While in the ambulance, he told police, "I believe I am Jesus reincarnated, and what I did may seem atrocious, but I was killing Medusas and werewolves." When he arrived at the hospital, he said, "I didn't enjoy killing at all. I said sorry, but the Son of God was controlling me. And when I stabbed them, I tried to do it mercifully. I aimed for their heart. They put up a struggle, which made it hard, but just so you know, it wasn't sadistic or anything."
Nancy, 3 independent experts all agree on DeGrood's mental state at the time of the crimes.
That's right. 2 expert psychiatrists and 1 expert psychologist all agree with the defense that Matthew DeGrood was not criminally responsible at the times the killing happened.
Determining what was real or what could have been faked was a major part of the police investigation in this case.
I believe many members of the public feel that the defense of not criminally responsible is a sham or a scam that people use to escape criminal liability. And as you heard from the expert witnesses that were called, these things are live in the minds of the experts when they do these assessments.
The judge ruled at the time of the fatal stabbings, DeGrood was mentally ill and wasn't able to understand his actions were morally wrong. Matthew DeGrood was found not criminally responsible, or NCR, for 5 counts of first-degree murder. In a letter read in court by his lawyer, DeGrood acknowledged the immense suffering he's caused. He said, "I want to make amends for this. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I hope you are able to understand that I am truly sorry for what I've done, and I will work to regain the trust of society." The finding of NCR meant DeGrood would not go to prison. Instead, he was sent to a secure psychiatric facility. The justice emphasized the law around an NCR ruling that ensures people who have mental disorders are treated, not punished.
Our life sentence is to every year go to the Mental Health Review Board and try to make sure that this dangerous offender never gets out and has a chance to hurt anyone else.
At the end of the trial, Matthew DeGrood's case officially moved from the justice system into the healthcare system. He was sent to a secure facility. But for how long? Would there come a day when he would once again be free? That's the question the families of the 5 victims wanted an answer to. And that's what we will look at next time on Crime Beat, in the conclusion of the Brentwood 5 massacre. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat.
For more on this story and other high-profile Canadian cases, check out Crime Beat Podcast.
You can listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on CuriousCast.ca.